High Commander Zexthar's crystalline throne pulsed with soft azure light as he studied the holographic display floating before him. His four-fingered hand, covered in iridescent scales, waved dismissively through the projection of Earth's orbital infrastructure. The movement scattered the image like startled birds, only to have it reform seconds later. "Primitive," he muttered, his translator converting the clicking sounds of his native tongue into standard galactic common. "Look at these pathetic excuses for space stations. They haven't even built a proper defense ring." Dr. Emily Roberts stood silently at the edge of the command deck, her white lab coat still bearing the logo of the Lunar Research Institute. 6 months had passed since her recruitment by the Hegemony's advanced scouts, and she'd learned the value of keeping her expression neutral. Inside, however, she smiled at the alien commander's arrogance. "High Commander," Verthin spoke up from his analysis station, his younger voice carrying none of the gravelly undertones of his superior. "I've noticed some concerning patterns in their technological progression." Zexthar's head frills rippled in what Dr. Roberts had learned to recognize as amusement. "Concerning for them, perhaps. Show me." The holographic display shifted to a series of graphs. Verthin's slender fingers traced along the curves. Most species show a logarithmic growth pattern in technological advancement. Even the Hegemony's progress followed this universal constant. But the humans... He highlighted a line that shot almost straight upward. They went from primitive atmospheric flight to rudimentary space travel in less than 7 decades. "A statistical anomaly," Zexthar dismissed. "Probably errors in our long-range historical scans." Dr. Roberts bit her tongue. She knew the truth. Humanity had reverse-engineered certain technologies from a crashed scout ship in the 1950s. The Hegemony thought they were being clever, sending automated probes ahead of their expansion. Instead, they'd given humanity a head start and a glimpse of what was possible. "Their energy signature readings are also unusual," Verthin persisted. "Their visible power output suggests fusion technology barely sufficient for interplanetary travel, yet we detect occasional spikes that suggest." "Enough." Zexthar's voice cracked like thunder. "You waste my time with pointless speculation. Look at their military capacity." The display shifted again, showing Earth's known defense fleet. Barely 50 ships capable of faster-than-light travel. Their weapons are based on crude projectile technology. Their shields, if you can call them that, wouldn't withstand a single volley from our lowest-grade destroyers. Dr. Roberts watched Verthin's shoulders slump in defeat. The young alien had good instincts, she thought. He saw the patterns that his commander's pride wouldn't let him recognize. She thought of the quantum fold generators hidden in Earth's asteroid belt, of the phantom fleet that trained in pocket dimensions where time moved differently, all invisible to the Hegemony sensors. "The invasion fleet stands ready, High Commander," another officer announced. "Shall I give the order to begin our approach?" Zexthar rose from his throne, his ceremonial armor catching the light. "Yes. Send the standard ultimatum. Surrender or face extinction. Add that I'm feeling generous. They have 48 hours to decide." He turned to Dr. Roberts, his alien features twisting into what passed for a smile. "Perhaps we'll keep their world as a vacation resort. I hear some regions have quite pleasant weather." Dr. Roberts bowed her head, hiding her expression. Her neural implant, undetectable to Hegemony scans, had already transmitted everything she'd learned about their fleet composition and tactical protocols. The quantum-encrypted message would reach Earth weeks before the invasion force. As she followed Zexthar off the command deck, she caught Verthin's eye. The young analyst quickly looked away, but not before she noticed the doubt in his expression. He knew something wasn't right about this supposedly primitive species that had mastered spaceflight in less time than some civilizations took to invent the wheel. The High Commander's boots echoed down the corridor, his swagger that of someone who believed victory was already his. Dr. Roberts thought of the ancient human saying, "Pride comes before a fall." In this case, it would be a fall of galactic proportions. She just hoped she'd have a good view when it happened. The Hegemony fleet materialized at the edge of the solar system in a cascade of purple-white ruptures in space. Hundreds of warships, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight like frozen fractals, arranged themselves in the traditional Sword of Subjugation formation. At their center, Zexthar's flagship, Eternal Dominion, dwarfed its escorts, its planet-killer weapon ports glowing with barely contained energy. Admiral Jack Cooper sat in his old leather chair aboard the Earth Defense Force Command Station, Homestead, sipping coffee from a chipped Nesa mug. His uniform bore the simple insignia of the EDF, deliberately understated compared to the ornate military decorations of most spacefaring races. "They're broadcasting, sir," Lieutenant Sarah Matthews reported from her communication station. "Standard surrender demand, threat of extinction." "Oh, and they're giving us 48 hours. That's generous by their usual standards." Cooper set down his mug. "Send them my response." Personal channel. In his command chamber, Zexthar watched with narrowed eyes as the human admiral's hologram appeared before him. The human's casual posture and slight smile triggered warning signals in the High Commander's ancient instincts. "High Commander Zexthar," Cooper nodded pleasantly. "Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Listen, I've got this amazing coffee from a little plantation in Colombia. Real stuff, not synthesized. What do you say we discuss this situation over a cup? I'll even break out the good creamer." Verithin, watching from his station, noticed something his commander missed. The subtle hand signal Cooper made to someone off-screen. In the vast darkness around Saturn, Commander Kate Martinez received the confirmation she'd been waiting for. "Operation Pandora's Box is go," she whispered into her neural link. "All units, commence silent running." Back on the command station, Cooper maintained his disarming smile as Zexthar's mandibles clicked in fury. "You dare to mock the might of the hegemony? Your primitive sensors must be malfunctioning. We have enough firepower to reduce your worlds to atomic ash." About those sensors, Cooper took another sip of coffee. "Funny thing about human technology, we're full of surprises, but hey, I'm still up for that coffee if you change your mind. Colombian beans are a heck of a lot better than atomic ash." In the shadows of Saturn's rings, Commander Martinez's fleet of ghost ships began their synchronized quantum fold maneuvers. Each vessel, invisible to conventional sensors, created its own pocket of folded spacetime. The technique, reverse-engineered from that crashed scout ship decades ago and perfected in secret, would let them slip between the very fabric of reality. 48 hours, Admiral Cooper, Zexthar snarled. "Then we will show you the true meaning of technological superiority." Cooper's smile never wavered. "Well, since we got some time to kill, mind if I ask about Dr. Emily Roberts? Smart lady, worked at our Lunar Institute, went missing about 6 months ago. Ring any bells?" The question caught Zexthar off guard. Verithin saw his commander's head frills flatten, a sign of sudden unease. How had they known about the captured scientist? "Your time would be better spent preparing your surrender terms," Zexthar recovered quickly. "I suggest you don't waste your remaining hours with pointless inquiries." "Just making conversation," Cooper shrugged. "Oh, and Emily, if you're watching, your cat's fine. Your sister Jennifer's been taking good care of her." The message wasn't meant for Dr. Roberts at all. Throughout the hegemony fleet, carefully planted sleeper agents, humans and sympathetic aliens alike, received their activation codes. Operation Pandora's Box wasn't just about military positioning. It was about having pieces in place when they were needed most. As the transmission ended, Cooper turned to his bridge crew. "Well, folks, looks like we got a party to prepare for. Lieutenant Matthews, signal the lunar defense grid to begin their light show. Let's give our guests something pretty to look at while the real work happens in the dark." Behind Saturn, Commander Martinez's fleet continued their invisible deployment. In research labs across the solar system, quantum fold generators spun up to full power, and in her quarters aboard the Eternal Dominion, Dr. Emily Roberts smiled as she fed false sensor data into the hegemony's tactical network, preparing for the moment when humanity would show their true capabilities. The clock was ticking, but not in the way Zexthar imagined. Zexthar stood triumphant on his command deck as the 48-hour deadline expired. "Launch the first wave," he ordered, his voice filled with anticipation. "Show these primitives the futility of resistance." 1,000 strike craft poured from the hegemony's capital ships, their energy weapons charging with ominous purple light. The formation was perfect, rehearsed countless times during the subjugation of other species. Behind them, the larger warships moved into bombardment positions, their planet-killer weapons plotting firing solutions for Earth's major population centers. Lieutenant James "Ghost" Wilson sat in the cockpit of his ship, the "Sorry About Your Door" hidden in a pocket of folded space. His crew of 5 maintained absolute silence as they watched the hegemony fleet through their quantum sensors. The enemy ships appeared as bright smears against the backdrop of normal spacetime, completely unaware that they were surrounded. "All Ghost Squadron units," Wilson whispered into his neural link. "Execute Operation Knock Knock." In the heart of the hegemony formation, reality rippled. 20 human vessels materialize simultaneously, each one appearing inside the cargo bays and launch tubes of different enemy capital ships. The "Sorry About Your Door" emerged directly within the maintenance bay of a hegemony dreadnought, its arrival scattering tools and spare parts across the deck. "Ladies and gentlemen," Wilson announced to the stunned alien mechanics, "we apologize for the unconventional entrance. Please keep your hands where we can see them." This is now a guided tour of human ingenuity. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Dr. Emily Roberts, watching from her position on the Eternal Dominion's bridge, allowed herself a small smile as Zexthar's composure finally cracked. The High Commander stared in disbelief at tactical displays, showing human ships appearing in supposedly secure internal spaces throughout his fleet. "Impossible," he roared. "Our shields are at maximum power. Nothing could penetrate." "Sir," Verthin interrupted, his voice tight with concern, "they didn't penetrate the shields. According to these readings, they simply ignored normal space entirely. They're phase-shifting somehow, but on a quantum level I've never seen before." On the bridge of the "Sorry About Your Door," Wilson's weapons officer, Sarah Chen, accessed the dreadnought's internal systems through previously planted backdoors. "Engineering controls secured," she reported. "Weapon systems isolated. Hull integrity fields ready for shutdown on your mark." "Excellent," Wilson grinned. "Signal the rest of the squadron. Time for Phase 2. Throughout the hegemony fleet, captured ships began powering down. Emergency bulkheads sealed randomly, trapping response teams in corridors. Gravity plating fluctuated wildly, sending security forces tumbling. Each disabled vessel became a blind spot in the enemy's defensive screen, a gap that grew larger by the second. "Multiple hull breaches detected," Verthin shouted as more human ships appeared, these emerging from fold space directly into the gaps created by their first wave. They're using our own ships as shield generators, sir. The energy bleed from our barriers is masking their emergence points." Zexthar slammed his fist into his command throne. "Launch all remaining fighters. Concentrate fire on—" "Sir," another officer interrupted, "our launch bays. They're all occupied. Human vessels are physically blocking our deployment tubes. They're just sitting there, inside our own ships." In his cockpit, Wilson watched the chaos unfold with professional satisfaction. The quantum fold generators hummed softly, keeping his ship partially phased to prevent any desperate ramming attempts. His crew worked with practiced efficiency, having rehearsed this operation countless times in compressed time bubbles hidden throughout the solar system. "Ghost Squadron," he broadcast on an open channel, knowing the psychological impact it would have on the enemy. "Phase 2 complete. All primary targets secured. Beginning system lockdown and crew detention procedures." He paused for effect. "Oh, and someone please make sure the High Commander's personal coffee maker is working. I heard he's got a meeting scheduled soon." Dr. Roberts watched Zexthar's head frills turn pale as the implications became clear. The humans hadn't just outmaneuvered them. They'd turned the hegemony's own ships into their forward operating bases in a matter of minutes, and somehow, she suspected this was just the beginning of humanity's surprises. Professor Michael O'Brien stood before the hastily assembled hegemony command staff, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The elderly scientist had requested this meeting personally, and even Zexthar, his authority crumbling by the minute, couldn't refuse given the circumstances. 73 years ago, O'Brien began, his voice carrying the weight of decades of secrecy. Your scout ship crashed in New Mexico. You thought you'd erased its memory banks. You hadn't. He pulled out an old, worn notebook. I was just a graduate student then, but I was part of the recovery team. This contains my original notes on your quantum drive technology. Verthin leaned forward, his analytical mind racing. That's impossible. The self-destruct protocols were based on a linear understanding of time. O'Brien interrupted. We found the ship's backup data in a temporal buffer. You see, we humans have a peculiar trait. We don't just think outside the box. We question why the box exists in the first place. On the massive display screen behind him, footage began playing. It showed the hidden shipyards of Europa, where vast orbital rings bent space itself into pocket dimensions. The hegemony officers watched in stunned silence as hundreds of advanced human warships emerged from what appeared to be tiers in reality. We call it the Quantum Fold Network, O'Brien continued. Your ship showed us it was possible to bend space, but we took that concept further than you ever imagined. We didn't just create ships that could slit between dimensions. We created entire universes to hide them in. Dr. Emily Roberts, standing at the back of the room, remembered her first day at the Europa facility. The sight of entire fleets training in compressed time bubbles, where years of experience could be gained in weeks of normal time, had left her speechless. Now, watching the hegemony officers' reactions, she felt a similar sense of awe rippling through the room. The ships you've encountered so far, O'Brien smiled. They're just the ones assigned to the welcome wagon. The real fleet has been waiting in pocket dimensions throughout the solar system. Some of them have been training for this moment for what amounts to centuries in their subjective time. Zexthar's voice trembled with rage and fear. Why reveal this now? Why not simply destroy us? Because that's not who we are, O'Brien replied. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our ability to innovate. It's our capacity to learn from our mistakes and help others learn from theirs. As if on cue, new ships began appearing throughout the solar system. The subtle approach emerged near Mercury, its hull gleaming with heat-dispersing quantum fields. The Second Chances materialized in Mars' orbit, its massive form dwarfing the hegemony's largest vessels. Near Jupiter, the Einstein's Laugh dropped out of its pocket dimension, trailing wisps of exotic particles. Each of these ships, O'Brien gestured to the display, has spent subjective decades perfecting the integration of our technologies with yours. We've had your scout ship's database, remember? We know exactly how your systems work, down to the quantum level. Verthin's analytical mind finally put the pieces together, the technological progression charts. They were wrong because we were operating on a different temporal framework entirely, O'Brien nodded. When you can create pocket universes where time moves differently, a few decades in normal space is more than enough time to advance centuries. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The hegemony hadn't just underestimated human military capability. They'd fundamentally misunderstood humanity's relationship with reality itself. So, O'Brien pulled out an old coffee thermos. Who'd like to discuss the future? And before you answer, remember, the ships you're seeing now. They're just the ones we're choosing to show you. Imagine what else might be hiding in the folds of space-time, waiting to say hello. Dr. Roberts watched Zexthar's proud posture crumble as the true scope of his miscalculation became clear. The High Commander's empire of conquest had just collided with something unprecedented. A species that had turned the very fabric of space-time into their playground, and yet still preferred to offer peace first. Zexthar paced the command deck of the Eternal Dominion, his claws leaving shallow scratches in the metallic floor. The holographic displays surrounding him showed an impossible scenario. Human vessels appearing and disappearing at will, each emergence making a mockery of the hegemony's defensive formations. "Launch the World-Breaker missiles," he commanded, his voice cracking. "Target their lunar colonies." "Sir." Verthin's voice carried a note of carefully measured concern. "The missile tubes are singing." "What?" Through the ship's internal communications came the distinct sound of classical music. Mozart's "The Magic Flute" echoed from every speaker, accompanied by a cheerful human voice. "This is Colonel Ashley Thompson of the Earth Defense Force Psychology Division. We've taken the liberty of reprogramming your weapons control systems. Don't worry, we picked something soothing." On the main view screen, a human vessel labeled Dramatic Entrance materialized directly in front of the Eternal Dominion. Its quantum wake disrupted the flagship's sensor arrays in a cascade of rainbow-colored distortions that somehow moved in perfect time with the music. "Your ships are equipped with illegal quantum dampeners," Zexthar screamed, his composure finally shattering completely. "No one could penetrate our defensive screens otherwise." "Actually," Thompson's voice carried a hint of amusement, "we just understand quantum mechanics better than you do. Here's a live demonstration, presented in surround sound." The next wave of human ships emerged in a complex pattern, their quantum signatures harmonizing with the music. Each appearance was precisely timed to the crescendos of Mozart's composition, creating what could only be described as a ballet of space-time manipulation. "Status report," Zexthar demanded. "High Commander," one of his officers responded, mandibles trembling. "They've accessed our entire combat database. They're scoring our tactical responses," with emoji faces. Sure enough, every tactical decision the hegemony forces made was being rated on a scale of smiling to frowning faces, complete with helpful improvement suggestions appearing in their command consoles. Verthin watched as his commander's legendary self-control continued to deteriorate. The young analyst had already noted how the humans were targeting Zexthar's pride with surgical precision. Each demonstration of superiority was carefully calculated not just for military effect, but for psychological impact. "Sir," Verthin attempted to reason with his commander, "perhaps we should consider their original offer of diplomatic." "Silence," Zexthar whirled on his subordinate. "I will not be lectured by a junior analyst while some backwater species makes a fool of our entire." He was interrupted by a new transmission. The holographic projection showed Admiral Cooper, still casually sipping coffee. "Hey folks, hope you're enjoying the show." Colonel Thompson insisted on the musical accompaniment. Said something about classical conditioning. "She's got a doctorate in xenopsychology, you know." Behind Cooper, they could see the Earth Defense Force's tactical display. It showed the positions of thousands more human ships, still hidden in pocket dimensions, each one waiting for the order to emerge. The message was clear. This wasn't just a defeat. It was a carefully orchestrated demonstration of overwhelming superiority. "Your race is barely a century into space travel," Zexthar protested weakly. "This level of quantum manipulation should be impossible." "Funny thing about humanity," Cooper replied, taking another sip of coffee. "We don't put much stock in impossible." "Now, about that diplomatic discussion. Our quantum fold generators work great for creating comfortable meeting spaces. Time moves a bit differently inside them, so we can take as long as we need to hash things out. Plus, the coffee stays hot longer." Dr. Emily Roberts, still maintaining her cover, but barely concealing her smile, watched as the last threads of Zexthar's authority visibly unraveled. The High Commander's head frills had lost their proud coloration, fading to a pale shade that reflected his crumbling confidence. "Oh, and Zexthar," Cooper added kindly, "you might want to check your personal quarters. We took the liberty of installing a premium coffee maker in there. Consider it a gift. Seems like you could use a break about now." The Mozart reached its finale as another wave of human ships performed their quantum dance, each movement a reminder that humanity hadn't just matched the hegemony's technology, they transformed it into an art form. Thomas Rodriguez adjusted his tie as he stepped through the quantum fold portal onto the observation deck of the Bridge Builder, humanity's newest diplomatic vessel. The ship existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, allowing representatives from various worlds to meet in spaces that matched their native environments perfectly. "Welcome to Operation Good Neighbor," he addressed the assembled delegates from 30 hegemony worlds, their environmental suits unnecessary in their specially configured sections of the room. "I'm Earth's Chief Diplomatic Officer, and I'm here to offer you something the hegemony never could: genuine partnership." The delegates murmured among themselves as holographic displays activated around the room, showing the true extent of human technological advancement. But unlike the military demonstrations, these images highlighted medical facilities, terraforming projects, and educational institutions. "Your worlds have suffered under the hegemony's extraction quotas," Rodriguez continued, his translator perfectly conveying both words and emotional context. "We're offering something different. Access to our quantum fold technology, yes, but more importantly, access to our educational systems, our medical advances, our agricultural innovations." A delegate from Proxima VI, their crystalline form shimmering with skepticism, spoke up. "And what do you want in return?" "Our resources, our loyalty." Rodriguez smiled warmly. "We want what humanity has always wanted: interesting neighbors to trade stories with. Did you know that Earth has over 5,000 distinct cultures, each with their own art, music, and traditions? We're not interested in replacing your ways with ours. We want to learn from you and share what we've learned in return." The quantum fold portal shimmered again as Admiral Cooper stepped through, carrying a tray of carefully prepared beverages. Each drink had been specifically designed to match the biochemistry and cultural preferences of the different species present. "Thought everyone might need a refreshment," Cooper said casually, as floating service drones delivered the drinks to each delegate section. "The quantum fold environment can be a bit overwhelming first time around." On the main display, live feeds showed human aid ships already emerging from fold space near struggling hegemony colonies. Medical teams, agricultural experts, and engineering specialists were deploying with supplies and knowledge, freely offered. "This is how Earth builds alliances," Rodriguez explained. "Not through force or fear, but through genuine cooperation. Each of your worlds has unique challenges. We've studied them all. That ship helping to restore Proxima VI's atmosphere. It's crewed by scientists who've spent subjective decades in time-dilated research spaces, developing solutions specifically for your world." The delegates watched in amazement as more feeds showed human ships using quantum fold technology to help rather than harm. The Second Harvest deployed orbital farming arrays above a famine-stricken world. The New Dawn used its quantum fields to stabilize a failing planetary core. Dr. Emily Roberts, now openly serving as a scientific advisor, stepped forward. "I spent 6 months aboard the Eternal Dominion. I saw how the hegemony treats its subjects, but I also saw people like Verthin. People who knew there had to be a better way. We're offering that way." "But surely," another delegate interjected, "the hegemony fleet would never allow." A new hologram appeared, showing the current state of Zexthar's once mighty armada. Each ship was enveloped in a quantum stasis field, their crews unharmed but completely immobilized. "The military situation has been resolved," Cooper said quietly. "Now comes the more important part: building something better together." Rodriguez gestured to a series of documents floating in holographic form before each delegate. "These are individual treaties, tailored to each of your worlds. They include immediate humanitarian aid, technological assistance, and full membership in the new Federation of Allied Species. No extraction quotas, no forced tributes, just mutual respect and cooperation. And if we refuse," asked the Proxima VI delegate, "then we wish you well and hope you'll reconsider in the future," Rodriguez replied simply. Earth's history has taught us that lasting alliances can't be built on coercion. We're strong enough to defend ourselves and our allies, but we're wise enough to know that real strength comes from working together. The room fell silent as the delegates reviewed the treaties, their expressions shifting from skepticism to cautious hope. In their separate environmental chambers, many began reaching for their signing implements. The age of the hegemony was ending, not with a bang, but with the quiet sound of hope taking root among the stars. Lieutenant Emma Davidson watched Zexthar through augmented contact lenses that transmitted everything back to Earth Defense Command. Her position as a junior communications officer on the Eternal Dominion, a cover maintained for months, gave her the perfect vantage point to witness the High Commander's final descent into desperation. "The Forbidden Vault," Zexthar muttered, his claws tapping rapidly on his command console. "Access code, Eternal Shadow Protocol." Emma's neural implant immediately flagged the code phrase. She sub-vocalized into her quantum-encrypted channel. "Subject is attempting to access Weapons Vault Omega. Contingency Echo is now in effect." Verithin, standing at his usual station, caught Emma's eye. The slight nod they exchanged confirmed months of careful preparation. Throughout the ship, other sleeper agents, both human and sympathetic hegemony crew, quietly moved into predetermined positions. "High Commander," Verithin spoke carefully, "the forbidden weapons were sealed away by the Council of Elders themselves. Using them would violate. The Council is not here." Zexthar roared, his normally iridescent scales now a sickly pale shade. "But we still have the world-ender devices. If these humans think they can humiliate the hegemony, we'll show them the true meaning of power." Emma's fingers danced across her console, appearing to process the High Commander's commands, while actually implementing carefully crafted override protocols. Professor O'Brien had spent subjective decades in time-dilated research spaces studying hegemony encryption, and his work was about to pay off. "Sir," she reported with perfectly feigned anxiety, "the vault doors are responding sluggishly. Environmental systems may have been damaged during the recent quantum disturbances." Zexthar stormed toward the vault access corridor, his honor guard falling in behind him. The moment he left the bridge, Verithin gave the signal. Throughout the massive ship, quantum fold generators, previously disguised as routine maintenance upgrades, hummed to life. "All units," Emma broadcast on the secure channel, "Operation House Cleaning is go. I repeat, house cleaning is go." The corridor ahead of Zexthar suddenly stretched impossibly long, a result of localized space-time manipulation. His guards found themselves walking in place, making no progress despite their movements. Behind them, sections of the ship began phasing into separate pocket dimensions, isolating loyal crew members in comfortable but secure bubbles of space-time. "What is this treachery?" Zexthar spun around, only to find himself alone in the corridor. His guards were still visible, but separated from him by transparent barriers of folded space. "Not treachery, High Commander." Emma stepped through a quantum portal, her disguise melting away to reveal an Earth Defense Force uniform. "Just careful planning." Verithin emerged from another portal, accompanied by several other officers who had secretly opposed Zexthar's increasingly brutal regime. "The world-ender devices were neutralized months ago," he explained. "We couldn't let you maintain control of weapons that could destroy entire solar systems." "You?" Zexthar's eyes fixed on Verithin. "You dare betray your own kind." "I chose to save our kind," Verithin replied calmly. "The hegemony's path of endless conquest would have eventually led to our own destruction. The humans showed us a better way." Throughout the ship, the operation proceeded with surgical precision. Quantum fields isolated potential resistance, while engineering teams secured critical systems. The few attempts at fighting back were met with non-lethal quantum stasis fields, freezing aggressors in place without harming them. "Your empire is finished," Emma stated firmly. "But you still have a choice about how this ends. Surrender with dignity, and you'll be treated with respect. Continue to resist." She gestured at the reality-warped corridor around them. Well, we can keep you walking down this hallway for a subjective eternity if necessary. Zexthar slumped against the wall, his magnificent armor now seeming to weigh him down. My own crew, my own officers, chose peace over destruction, Verthin finished, as must we all, eventually. Emma opened another portal, revealing Admiral Cooper and a delegation of both human and hegemony officials. High Commander, Cooper called out, his voice carrying a note of genuine sympathy. I believe we still have some coffee waiting in the diplomatic quarter. Care to join us? We have quite a few documents that could use your signature. The corridor rippled as reality reasserted itself, leaving Zexthar with only one path forward, toward cooperation, whether he liked it or not. The signing ceremony aboard the Second Chances took place in a vast chamber created by overlapping quantum fields, allowing representatives from 30 different species to exist comfortably in their native environments while sharing the same space. Admiral Cooper stood at the central podium, his coffee mug now a familiar sight to all assembled. 6 months ago, he began, the hegemony arrived in our solar system expecting an easy conquest. Today, we gather not to celebrate their defeat, but to welcome new friends into an era of unprecedented cooperation. Verthin, now serving as the interim leader of the former hegemony worlds, stepped forward in his section of the chamber. His formal robes, once decorated with symbols of military conquest, now bore the intricate patterns representing scientific and cultural achievement. Our people spent millennia believing that strength came from dominance. Verthin addressed the assembly. Humanity showed us that true strength comes from working together. Their quantum fold technology could have been used to destroy us. Instead, they used it to create spaces where we could all meet as equals. Dr. Emily Roberts, standing beside Professor O'Brien, watched as representatives from each world approached the floating holographic treaty. The document, written in quantum-encoded ink, automatically translated itself into each species' native language while maintaining perfect legal consistency across all versions. The Federation of Allied Species, Thomas Rodriguez announced, is founded on principles of mutual respect, scientific cooperation, and cultural exchange. Each member world retains its sovereignty while contributing to our shared future. Throughout the chamber, quantum displays showed the changes already taking place. The New Horizons used its full technology to help terraform harsh worlds, making them habitable for their native species. The Healing Light deployed advanced medical technologies to worlds long neglected under hegemony rule. The Cultural Bridge traveled between worlds, hosting art exhibitions and cultural festivals in its reality-warped spaces. In his assigned quarters on Earth, Zexthar watched the ceremony through a quantum-linked window. His comfortable apartment, overlooking the Pacific Ocean, served as both home and reminder. Every morning, he would find a fresh cup of Colombian coffee waiting, accompanied by reports of how his former empire was transforming into something greater than he had ever imagined. The Quantum Fold Network, Professor O'Brien explained to the assembly, now connects all member worlds. Travel that once took years can be accomplished in moments, but more importantly, it allows us to share knowledge, culture, and resources in ways previously thought impossible. Lieutenant Emma Davidson, her undercover days long behind her, demonstrated by stepping through a series of quantum portals. With each step, she moved between worlds, sampling their atmospheres, experiencing their gravity, and greeting their people. The technology that had won the war was now building bridges between civilizations. But perhaps, Cooper continued, his eyes twinkling, the most important exchange has been the smallest. He raised his coffee mug. Who would have thought that Earth's humble coffee bean would become the galaxy's most sought-after diplomatic tool? Laughter rippled through the chamber in various forms, some audible, some visible only as patterns of light or vibrations in crystalline structures. The quantum fields translated each species' expression of joy into forms the others could understand. Verthin raised his own cup of coffee, the drink carefully modified to suit his biology. To the future we build together, he proclaimed. and to the humans who showed us that the greatest power isn't the ability to destroy worlds, but the wisdom to help them thrive. As the ceremony concluded, the Second Chances began its journey through fold space, carrying diplomats back to their homeworlds. Each quantum jump scattered rainbow-colored light across the stars, a testament to how far they had all come from the brink of war. In his Earth apartment, Zexthar finally reached for the coffee cup that had been waiting patiently each morning. As he took his first sip, he found himself understanding something that had eluded him throughout his military career. True victory sometimes looked nothing like what you had imagined. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of irony. His quest for dominance had indeed changed the galaxy, just not in the way he had intended. And somehow, that didn't seem like such a bad thing anymore.